keep Borzov. He's got 2 Sin Collectors, Desecration Demon, Blood Baron with Scope Up, Ramaz, Obsidat, a slew of removal spells and Thoughtseize.
Yeah, these sort of strategies are very powerful against opposing creature decks because you have just removal spells and awesome creatures.
Yeah.
You struggle a little bit more against control decks because your threats are not as good there.
Yeah, the big thing that you're kind of missing here, too, is some card drawing. Sometimes we see versions that have Underworld Connections or a couple copies of Read the Bones, but, you don't really have a great source. You are doing some really powerful things, though.
Yes.
So we see some temples from each player to get things started here. We're going to see some cards that we don't see a lot of, actually. Bramaz from Carter's side. We've got Kiora from Kassari's side. Kiora, one of my favorite cards from the new set.
Yeah, we've seen Kioras here and there in our standard opens the last couple weeks. Not to any great success thus far, but certainly one of the most powerful, most hyped cards in Born of the Gods.
So a Temple of Plenty there from Kassari as he does pass the turn back. Here is a Swamp. So what Carter has, it's a copy of Sin Collector. Again, there are 2 in his main deck. Kassari will lay his hand out, and there's a Dissolve in there at least for the taking. You also see a Detention Sphere, a Supreme Verdict, and just a couple of lands. There's a Temple Guard, there's a Breeding Pool, a couple islands over there for Kassari.
Yeah, these Sin Collectors are probably a concession to the fact that his Game 1 matchup against Blue-White Control and Esper are going to be a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
And he also has 1 main deck copy of Whip of Erebos, so that's a nice creature to get back with the Whip.
Yeah, between that and Obsidat, he actually does have at least a game plan against, a Blue-White Sphinx's Revelation type deck. It's one that they've actually gotten pretty good at beating, but it's a game plan nonetheless, as there goes Dissolve if he is Sin Collector.
Dissolve, very powerful, of course, against all of Justin's 4 and 5 mana spells.
Kassari draws a Hallowed Fountain for the turn. So it's all about just hitting the land drops to start here for John as he does play a Temple Garden pass before passing back over to Carter, who likely is going to deal first blood here in round 5 via that Sin Collector. Kassari goes down to 18.
It's possible Justin's actually setting up a path here for Obsidat Resolve, which I believe John's deck is really light on ways to actually answer once it's in play.
Very, very soft too. He does have, he has Elspeth if Obsidat somehow is in play when Elspeth can actually take care of it. Same thing can be said about Detention Sphere. But yeah, even something as simple as like an Azorius trying to reset it does not exist here. So it's very, very difficult for Kassari's deck to beat that card.
And you can see the problem that Justin's going to have in this matchup right now is his hand is a Desecration Demon that he does not want to cast into the face of the Supreme Bird he knows about. Multiple Heroes Downfalls, which of course have no targets in play yet for John, and some lands. So really hard for him to, and he draws another removal spell, Mizium Mortars. Very hard for him to apply sufficient pressure before something like Sphinx's Revelation takes the game over.
Yeah, this is something that's going to happen a lot, as you mentioned, in these kind of Revelation type matchups, is he just doesn't have, he has a lot of removal.
Yeah.
Like a boatload of removal. You mentioned Mortars, got Dreadbores, got Heroes Downfall, Devour of Flesh, just a ton of cards that don't have a lot of text in this matchup.
Yeah.
So now all he can do is really chip away here with Sin Collector. That's all he can really afford to do at this point in time.
Yeah, or he can find some sort of discard spell like a Thoughtseize or another Sin Collector to perhaps get rid of the Supreme Verdict and open up a path for him to start playing his Desecration Demon and so forth. But for the time being, he is just going to have to attack and do very little else.
Yeah, just going to chip away the entire time because that's all he can really. It's all he can really do. Kassari's going to play a Hallowed Fountain tap, pass the turn back. Thankfully for Justin, Kassari's not really drawing much of anything right now. He's just drawing a lot of lands.
Yeah. But this can all get blown up with Sphinx's Revelation off the top.
All it takes is one. And then comes Carter once again, going to knock Kassari down to 12. And again, as you mentioned, he can't afford to play this Desecration Demon because he knows that Kassari has a Supreme Verdict in his hand, so there's no reason to allow himself to get 2 for 1. Revelation, the draw there for Kassari. So you mentioned it, and here it is.
Yeah. This is shaping up to be a tough game for Justin.
And I assume that he is just a huge Game 1 dog to a lot of strategies like this, as he does draw a Thoughtseize for the turn. Does Carter. And he's certainly going to lead out his turn with that. And Kassari, I think Patrick will have a response.
Yeah, this is going to be a rev for 4. Really solid for John. Of course, Justin's still going to be able to take the best card, but card advantage critical for John.
And even getting that life back matters too. And you see, here's the hand. Elspeth, probably the best card that was drawn. There's a D-Sphere, a couple of lands, a Verdict. So 2 D-Spheres, 2 Verdicts, and it looks like just a bunch of lands. Some nice ones at that if you're into foils.
Yeah. But still, you can see, it's hard for Justin to create any sort of forward progress here.
Yeah.
Even the Planeswalkers coming in for a return, he has Heroes Downfall and Dreadbore in his hand and in his deck. Even the Planeswalkers, any of them, Elspeth, Kiora, or Jace coming into play and using their card advantage power once is really obnoxious for Justin's deck.
So you see Detention Sphere is going to be the card taken via Thoughtseize. So there's 2 verdicts over there, a Sphere and an Elspeth among those lands. But, this is the kind of the problem here, again, that Carter knows Kassari's hand, so can't really afford to play a Desecration Demon again. He just has to just chip away, for lack of a better term.
And just hope for some good draws.
Yeah. I'm sure Kassari knows that his opponent probably has something like a Hero's Downfall or a Dreadport in his hand, but he can still just get value from his Elspeth. Those 3 Soldier tokens gum up the ground enough that it's worth it.
Yeah.
And so you do see Kassari tapping 6 mana, and he will deploy Elspeth.
And you also know now that Justin has Thoughtseize in his deck. Not that that's a hard thing to predict, but you also just don't want things sitting in your hand as well.
And so there is a Hero's Downfall, which Kassari knew was going to happen. So there goes Elspeth, 3 soldiers in play, ready to, battle that Sin Collector. Now, if Carter does have 3 red mana among those lands, I believe he does, he could overload Mizium Mortars, which seems like a mediocre to be just like a very unexciting play, but it clears the road and lets him do what he's been doing.
Yeah, at this point, he's just drawn Blood Baron, which is actually a threat that, depending on John's exact list, might be able to kind of steal a game. It wouldn't surprise me if he, at this point, was willing to say, I'm going to play the Desecration Demon and try to open up a path to, John uses Supreme Verdict, maybe you can make him use his other Supreme Verdict somewhere else, and then Blood Baron might be able to steal the game.
It's kind of, got to kind of cross your fingers here if you're Carter, just because you do have so many dead draws in your hand right now. Take a look at his mana. It looks like he's only got 2 sources of red mana, the Blood Crypt and the Temple of Malice. So he's just going to deploy the Blood Baron right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Kassari does just use one of those 2 copies of Supreme Verdict in his hand.
Yeah.
Clear all of this stuff up and just go back to step 1. As he will draw a card, and it's another copy of Supreme Verdict, so that actually makes the decision even easier now.
I felt like this is probably minor details as Justin's just kind of in some pretty general trouble right now. I felt like I would have led with the Desecration Demon there instead of the Blood Baron, because the only real path here is for Justin to land a threat that John just randomly doesn't have the right kind of answer to. You're aware of Detention Sphere, so instead of leading with Blood Baron, which induces Wrath, now you have Desecration Demon left over against his Detention Sphere. If you switch it, now all of a sudden you might have Blood Baron against his Detention Sphere, which he can't target, and you might have an opening.
Yeah. Especially when you're when you're a dog in game 1, you have to leverage, those small windows that you do get.
Yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle for Justin no matter what, but there is some low percentage chance that he can't answer a Blood Baron because of the cards he's put in his deck or the cards he happens to draw.
And there's a Kiora. So Kassari is going to use the second ability to Explore. See a Courser of Krufix the draw.
Yeah, so Kassari playing, I believe, with Sylvan Caryatid as well, so he actually has a mana ramp into Planeswalker element to his deck as well.
Yeah, he also can ramp into Plasm Capture, which allows him to ramp into Large Revelations, things of that nature. So this is a very, if you're familiar with John Kassari, this is a very John Kassari deck.
I don't know what he's going to do when Sphinx's Revelation rotates out of Standard.
Yeah, me either.
We might not see very much of this guy anymore. But just loves playing a control deck.
He loves Bant, too.
Yeah.
I remember in Vegas, he got off to a great start at the Invitational on day 1 before kind of crashing and burning on day 2. Verdict's going to take care of the Desecration, even a little 1-for-1 action. Going to play a land off of the Kiora ability. Temple Guardian kind of come into play tapped and pass the turn back. So does hit the 2 land drops before passing back to Carter. So a huge land advantage as Carter does draw a Plains for the turn.
And this is what I was talking about with the problem with the Planeswalkers. Justin has an answer to them, but Kiora has already kind of done its damage by activating once.
Yeah, if it gets to do any more, that's cool. But yeah, as you mentioned, just the fact that he gets to use it initially and then Carter has to take care of it afterward is just a big, big problem. So there's a Deso Demon. Just going to pass the turn back. Surprised he's not going to fire off something to take care of that Kiora right now.
Well, I believe he has Hero's Downfall still in hand, so he might be trying to just trap John a little bit here.
Okay. See, Kassari drew an Elspeth for the turn. So he wants to deploy this turn or not. So you can start by deploying Courser if you'd like. Start really getting through his deck. So there is Courser. Top card is a Temple of Mystery. Kassari will play that for his land. So that's going to come into play. He's going to go up to 15 from the Courser trigger. Take a look at the top card. I think he's going to keep that.
I imagine Sphinx's Revelation is better than the average draw at this stage. So I believe John is likely to keep that on top of his deck.
I like to select to keep it. as here is an Elspeth. Take up to 5, 3 soldiers coming. And now here's a hero's downfall. Take care of the Elspeth. As far as win conditions go for John's deck, you take a look at a control deck, how they're going to win the game. There is one Aetherling hiding out in here. Courser can deal some damage. Elspeth is a 3 of, 2 are already gone. And then Kiora is a 2 of Kassari's deck. But the ultimate on that can provide a win condition as well. So he's got plenty to get the job done.
Yeah, and you may ask yourself, why are you playing Sylvan Caryatid and Courser of Krufix alongside Supreme Verdict? And the answer is those are 2 marquee cards in terms of forcing beatdown decks to have to continue to play creatures. Courser and Caryatid are so awesome at blocking, they actually force your opponent to play even further into Supreme Verdict. So it does look a little awkward on the surface, but Courser does a lot of good work for John. The mana acceleration of Caryatid is also very powerful for him, and in a subtle way, those cards actually force his opponent to play further into Supreme Verdict.
There's Dreadbore. It's time for Kiora to go. And Carter will just pass the turn back. So Kassari's going to draw that Sphinx's Revelation. Top card is a Dissolve.
And that is, I'm not going to say that this is a lock, but this Rev and knowing that there's a hard counter coming is going to be really tough for Justin to beat.
Yeah, I agree. It's got the answer. Does Kassari into Tension Sphere for that Desecration Demon, and you can just give the beatdowns from there. And the worst spot that you can be in against a player who has Dissolve is they can pick and choose what's worth dissolving.
Yeah.
And that's the really hairy spot. So Hero's Downfall drawn here for Carter. He's got the Mizium Mortars, another mystery card hanging on there. It's actually a copy of Burmaz. Just another card that's really not going to do a ton, as Kassari is going to sacrifice a soldier token to the old Desecration Demon.
And as rough as this game is going, you can imagine how Justin's deck just wails on creature decks.
Oh, yeah.
Just infinite cheap removal and just all of the marquee creatures of the format, including Burmaz. I mean, that's even another just awesome threat that he has access to. But not really that awesome against a deck like John's.
Here's a big Rev. It's going to be for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks like for 10. So Dissolve is going to go to the hand. He's actually going to get to show all of these cards. So, hey, it'll help us here in the booth.
Yeah.
There's a Courser. Looks like there's an Aetherling. A Detention Sphere. Another copy of Courser, so that's 8, 9, and 10. Of course, all of these cards being shown because Courser of Krufix reveals the top card of your deck.
Yeah, it goes the whole way through. This is why if you have a Courser in play and you play a Scryland, your opponent actually gets to watch you make the whole decision, whether or not you leave it on top and what the card is.
So Rev is going to resolve. Cards of relevance added to the gripper: Aetherling, Plasma Capture, and the Dissolve. The additional Coursers don't really do a ton in the situation. Kassari's got enough life. He's already got a Courser in play. And, if he were to run into Supreme Verdict, he'd probably just want to clear up this board and then play Aetherling and go from there.
Pretty no fuss, no muss sort of path to victory here.
Yeah.
And there is Supreme Verdict on top.
Called it. That's why they bring us here.
You just know.
Yeah. You do this enough, you just know how it works. Take a look at the Plasma Capture. Carter will do the same. It is one of my favorite cards that doesn't see enough play.
It is Mana Drain, one of Magic's most powerful cards of all time, with 2 green added to the mana cost.
Yes, it's very hard to cast, but it's really powerful if you can cast it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it adds any combination of mana is sweet.
It is sweet.
And hey, it's got good art too. Even though I don't really know what it's a picture of.
It's an ooze doing something. I don't know.
That's really good art depiction by you.
I didn't read the description, man.
It's an ooze doing something.
I think. Not actually 100% on that one.
I think Nicol Bolas is winning that fight, but I'm not sure. I'm assuming that is Nicol Bolas.
Yeah. I didn't, ask him for his ID or nothing, but
yeah, I'd leave him alone. He's an attack here from Kassari. He's getting into the red zone. Jace is the card on top of his deck. Supreme Verdict was added to the grip. So it looks like damage is going to be dealt. Maybe there's a block, maybe there's not. Gain a life here, will Kassari from the Courser. I wouldn't be surprised to see him just go Verdict. Could cast Aetherling if you want to with plenty of mana up. Or you can just discard some cards and other stuff, but he is going to cast Aetherling, sensing that the coast is pretty clear. He's got plenty of blue mana to leave up to be able to blink it in case anything goes wrong. He'll probably have to discard here just to guess.
Yeah. He did draw 10
yeah.
or whatever it was last turn, so it would stand to reason.
Yeah, he'll discard a couple of lands, It's got Intention Sphere, it's got Dissolve, got Plasm Capture, and you can comfortably pass the turn back knowing that there's not too much that can go wrong for him. See, Elspeth was draw here, but as good as cards Elspeth is, Aetherling greater than Sign Elspeth.
For sure. Especially when one person's playing with card drawing and counter spells and the other person's playing with Hero's Downfall and Desecration Demon.
Let this be a lesson to everyone at home. Sphinx's Revelation, powerful Magic card.
Let this be a lesson. If you want to play a control deck without Sphinx's Revelation, you're really likely to struggle against Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, it's typically how that works. As good as the card as Underworld Connections is, it does not stand toe-to-toe with Revelation.
Yeah. And Justin isn't even playing with a card like that. I mean, he's a pure board control deck.
Yeah, he's here to clean up on creatures. That's what his deck does. You see him going to cast an Elspeth here. And Kassari is just going to dissolve that. Yes. He knows that 1 blue is good enough to beat any removal spell.
Right, he doesn't want a mana drain there as he's just, still wants to leave mana up to protect his Aetherling.
Aetherling's going to come across here for 8. It's going to put Carter down to 6. Kassari moving a little bit quicker now, sensing that this game is basically over. Doesn't have to do very much, as Carter is on very limited options to get himself out of the situation.
Yeah, you look, it's just lands and creature removal spells.
Yeah, that's his deck. Land, creature removal spells, and creatures. And, he's got the 2 Elspeths. Here's an attack. Going to pump twice, present lethal. And like, here's a Hero's Downfall that will get Plasma captured. Or he's just going to blink it out, sure.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to kill him this turn, can do it next turn.
Yeah, John's happy to run this turn back if that's,
Here's a Jace. It'll tick up. I do like ticking it up in this situation, even though this seems minor because I wouldn't want to reveal any extra cards that my opponent could potentially sideboard against, so.
Also, it's another path to victory in case something really weird happens with this Aetherling.
Yeah. Don't want to play sloppy even though you're super far ahead.
Yeah. And John would just have to discard most of the stuff he drew anyway because he's still at max hand size.
Yeah. So Carter draws his card. Again, he's got a Missing Mortars hiding out over there. Here's a copy of Thoughtseize. And I actually like firing this off. Even though he is dead, I would have actually fired that off to get a little information before heading to game 2.
Yeah, cast it. I mean, the most likely scenario is that it gets hit with the Plasm Capture, but there's some chance that John lets it resolve, and then you may gain some valuable information.
Either way, John Kassari is going to win game number 1 here with his band control deck over Justin Carter playing black, white, red mid-range. We'll go to the sideboards. You've got Carter's in front of you. I'll let you begin.
2 copies of Duress, 2 copies of Dark Betrayal, 2 Slaughter Games, 2 Revoke Existence, 3 Lifebane Zombies, and 4 Fiendslayer Paladins. I would imagine that we're going to definitely see the copies of Duress and the copies of Slaughter Games come in, as that's actually a way for Justin to get Sphinx's Revelation out of John's deck, and then they can actually kind of fight a fair fight. It wouldn't also surprise me to see Lifebane Zombie come in. You've seen Courser of Crufix, and also Justin just has a lot of dead weight in his deck. Just too many removal spells and some threats that aren't really the best ones to show up with. So I would imagine he's going to be bringing in a bunch of cards just because he has a lot of inefficient stuff to get out of his deck.
Taking a look at Kassari's sideboard here, 1 Blind Obedience, not a surprise. Those are kind of the industry standard nowadays for these Revelation control decks. 2 copies of Pithing Needle, Revoke Existence, 3 copies of Mistcutter Hydra, 2 Gainsayed, 3 Archangel of Thunis, Lesnia Charm, and 2 copies of Aetherling. So he has the ability to side up to 3 of those, which is something we never see.
Yeah, and the control matchups are often about, the mirror matches are quite often about just who has the most stuff. Aetherling always warrants a counter, or else it's pretty close to game over. And just having more of them means you can be a little bit more liberal about running your Aetherling into a potential counter spell.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him board in those 2 Aetherlings and then board out his Coursers or what have you, Sylvan Caryatids, whatever, just to have 3 winning conditions that he can draw pretty easily, because as we saw in that game, Elspeth isn't going to play a huge role for Kassari. That's definitely not going to close the game out for him in this matchup.
Yeah, Justin has, between Hero's Downfall and Dreadboard, it's unrealistic that Elspeth's going to just go all the way.
Now, the other cards in Kassari's sideboard, none of them are really all that exciting. I guess Blind Obedience is okay. Needle's okay. Rogue Existence, if you think your opponent has Underworld Connections, is okay. But there isn't anything crazy going on here. I just wouldn't be surprised if he just says, all right, 2 Aetherlings in, 2 Elspeths out, let's move on with life.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty solid setup.
Now, Patrick, on the old Twitter sphere, Miagor let us know that it's Niv Mizzet on Plasma Capture, not Nicol Bolas, which makes sense.
Yeah, as he was one of the main drivers in the plot line of that block, I feel like.
Yes, Niv Mizzet, Draco Genius. Or no, I think it's Draco Genius. Draconius?
If only we had some way to look this up.
Yeah, and put it on the screen for everyone at home so they could see it. Just
If there
like
was
us.
only some way.
Yeah. It's
there is
Draco
some-
Genius. Yes.
Yeah, you still
I knew
got it.
I knew it. He has no patience for minds that do not inspire him or explode by trying. Keep that in mind next time we get the artwork wrong
All right.
on
I will.
Plasm Capture. Okay. Neither Niv Mizzet has been good. That's not cool.
They were both the stones in draft.
Well, yeah,
They were both really good in draft.
they were both fun beatable in draft. I understand that, but they're not good and constructed. We need to have a Niv Mizzet that's good. 6 mana is a lot, but
It is a lot of mana.
we need a good Niv
It's
Mizzet.
reasonable, you know. I don't think that, you know, every single card has to be pointed towards top tier play, but it's nice when the storyline characters are constructed
Just get
impactful
to
cards.
thump people.
That's why every Jace is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, that's true. I'm tired of Jace being good.
Yeah, that's a little played out.
What's the worst Jace? 5 mana?
Yeah,
Still
Memory Adept.
Still perfectly
and
fine.
that's still a very reasonable tournament level card.
Yeah, it's like a good sideboard card. It was just saw plenty of play.
Yep.
We need a bad Jace.
I don't think that's ever going to happen. There might be one that's more, you know, casual play focused. I guess Memory Adept could be typified of that. Millstoning pretty popular in amongst casual players. So
Sure.
if that's what the low power Jace looks like, then it's no surprise what the high power ones look like.
See both players looking at their opening hand here for game number 2. It looks like we're both happy. We are underway. Gonna start things off with a Thoughtseize. Hand for Kassari is a Detention Sphere. Looks like a bunch of lands there too. And then a Sylvan Caryatid, that's it.
Yeah, pretty soft hand here. And remember, Justin with access to slaughter games, so he can set up the information that he wants with these other discard spells with his Thoughtseizes and Duresses, or just go straight for Sphinx's Revelation.
Because there are 2 temples, Temple of Plenty and Temple of Mystery, it's a Thoughtseize proof hand.
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
No.
No, okay. Feels like that's how it should work. Well, there goes the D-Sphere. So it's basically 6 lands. Sylvan Caryatid and 5 lands. Take a draw. Looks like a copy of Supreme Verdict. There's a Temple of Plenty from Kassari.
Now, this is the type of matchup where having Sylvan Caryatid and Supreme Verdict in your deck is quite bad.
I
Because
agree.
Justin can induce a Supreme Verdict with a single threat.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see Sylvan Caryatid in Kassari's hand after sideboard, where I don't think he needs to accelerate. Like, I suppose acceleration is better when you're on the draw in this matchup, but I don't think that he needs to accelerate and then just wrath away his own Sylvan Caryatids.
Sure.
I see Carter considering playing a Temple of Malice this turn.
Looks like he has a slight colored mana issue. It doesn't look like he has white mana just yet.
Take a little look-ski-poo. He does have Sin Collector in his hand, so yeah, if he had white mana, I think he would have played it this turn. But he's going to leave that card on top.
Well, he actually may want to wait on the Sin Collector until John has a couple more draw steps to find a spell. Because he
Yeah.
knows, based on that Thoughtseize, he knows that John's hand was just lands and that carries it after the fact. So he may actually be happy to wait a little while before casting that one.
Kassari's really Selesnya Charm for this turn. It's a 1 of in his sideboard. Nice job at cleaning up the Desecration Demon. That's mostly what it's there for.
He can also reasonably assume that Obsidian is a card that Justin has access to.
We mentioned that's a tough card for him to beat.
It is rough, yeah.
A lot of people don't look at Celestial Charm as a removal spell, but that's the role that it plays a lot for Kassari in these band builds. As there's a Godless Shrine off of the top there from Carter, he'll take 2, go down to 16. It might be time to collect some sins. It is. So here's a hand. Celestial Charm, Supreme Verdict, Elspeth, an island, and a forest.
And there was no hesitation out of Justin there before he got rid of that Selesnya Charm.
He's been a lot more deliberate with his discard spells, and there he was just like, get that out of here, go.
I don't know if he's got a plan where he's trying to set up Obsidian or something, but
So there's a Jace for Kassari. Going to be able to protect that nicely with Sylvan Caryatid, and Jace will tick up. It's interesting use of Jace in this matchup because I think when you know your opponent has Dreadbore and Hero's Downfall in their deck, I think you just have to -2 it right away just to get something from it.
yeah, I understand the instinct here that John is, is just playing a slow matchup, try to bleed value out of that Jace, but between all the Hero's Downfalls and Dreadbores you saw out of Justin's deck, it just strikes me as unlikely.
You see Mutavault's going to get fired up here, so we're going into the red zone. Carter says, I'm going to attack you. So triggers from the Jace. It's going to be 1 damage that comes across from the Sin Collector. And then the Hero's Downfall is going to get fired off to take care of the Jace.
Yeah, this speaks to what you were just talking about. John may be better served just minusing. Although I guess in that world he just loses his Jace to the attackers the following turn. But
yeah, but at least you get something from it.
Yeah.
You know, here's Elspeth. Soldier Token's going to come into play. You know, this also could be a situation where maybe he ups it because he knows his opponent has a removal spell for a Planeswalker, so as a result, the Jace baits out the removal spell, and then the Elspeth can just kind of take it home.
Sure.
Because there's no removal spell actually for the Elspeth. Which looks like it might actually be the case right now.
Yeah, Justin's hand just looks to be lands and a Blood Baron, so John may have opened up a path for this Elspeth to be a big deal.
Temple of Malice, top card going to the bottom. Carter likely looking for an answer to Elspeth, as he's currently without one. Troubles are brewing.
And he can't just throw this Blood Baron onto the table the way the board is composed right now because of Elspeth simply minusing the Blood Baron away.
You see Mutavault gets fired up. You see the blocks there from Kassari, putting all his creatures in front of Carter's creatures and then passing the turn back.
2 lands in 1 turn. 2 lands in 1 turn.
Yeah, we're going to stop the game because we believe Carter played a second land that turn. He played a Temple of Malice and a Mutavault.
Temple of Malice and Plains.
And Plains, okay.
So it was a pretty long and protracted turn. Justin's hand's also just, you know, just lands in the Blood Baron. There's no edge being gotten here,
Yeah.
but the turn just took a while.
Yeah, so good catch there. Because he did play Temple of Malice, Scryed,
Right.
and then he attacked with the Sin Collector and the Mutavaults, and then he played a land after combat and passed the turn back.
Yeah.
So, got to make sure our game states are correct.
And you can see that he has 2 tapped lands for the 2 Mutavault activations and then a 3rd tapped land, which means one of those temples had to come into play that turn.
Yeah. You are correct. So, we back it up, we get everything in order, and then we'll continue playing momentarily here. As Kassari did play a Courser of Crucifix, revealing a Courser of Crucifix, but we'll make sure that our game state is appropriate before we do continue.
And 2 lands in 1 turn is a challenging thing to catch on camera, just because the turns are so long sometimes. And but fortunately, there we were able to point that one out. So we'll see. I don't know if there's a warning associated. I would assume there's at least a warning associated with this.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening here. So we'll bring it back to us for a moment until we do figure out what exactly happens. Once we get a ruling, we'll let you guys know. But Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star City Games Open Series here in Los Angeles. We appreciate you guys joining us this weekend. We see John Kassari playing a band control deck, something I know Brian Braun to win, Chris Van Meter, those guys tried for a little while. Basically just a blue-white deck splashing for Kiora. This version of the deck has more green spells, Sylvan Caryatid, Courser of Crucifix, some sideboard options. Any reason that Bant hasn't really picked up, you think?
Well, the incentives that you get from black right now are really high. Thoughtseize is probably better in control mirror matches than anything that green gives you, even additional planeswalkers. You also get the flexibility of Ultimate Price or Doomblade depending on the metagame, whereas green is basically just giving you Kiora. So I'm not saying that it's impossible, but the metagame has to be in a very specific place for Kiora to outweigh the incentives that you're getting from all the black cards you have access to.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for somebody to figure out how to make Kiora great. And it was basically what we've seen here with like the red-white burn deck, for example. It seems like it's taken a couple of months, but people have kind of tailored it to something that they like, and now it's starting to win with the win last week in Seattle. We haven't seen that with Kiora yet.
Well, to me, I think the key component with Kiora is Jace, because those cards play so well together. Of course, planeswalkers in tandem are kind of always going to be good.
Of course.
But Jace is really, really good at fighting a bunch of small stuff. You know, mono red or mono white, they have a sea of 2 power creatures, you Jace and plus it, and it's a disaster for those decks. But Jace is not very good against one big thing. A Desecration Demon is kind of annoying for Jace. The reverse is true of Kiora. Kiora is really poorly suited at fighting a lot of little stuff, but very well suited to fighting one big thing. So those 2 cards in tandem actually cover each other's liabilities. And because they're both card advantage planeswalkers, you know, Jace draws you cards, Kiora allows you to make more land drops, which is a nice thing to be doing. I mean, there's a lot of natural synergy between those 2 planeswalkers, and I think it's finding the right mixture or the right skeleton to go alongside those 2 cards to really make Kiora work.
I wouldn't be surprised if the card that Kiora kind of needs with it is a Time Warp type effect, even if the card Time Warp itself You know, in combination with that, you've got Courser, you've got Planeswalkers, obviously, which work great with time warp effects. I wouldn't be surprised if that's that's maybe the card that's a missing piece. I don't know if that's coming, obviously, but I don't know. I like when there's a time warp in a format.
Yeah, I think Time Warp is a cool card. It is very dangerous to print alongside Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
Is the issue.
Oh yeah, it's very, very scary, especially with Planeswalkers are so much better now than they were at the beginning too.
Could you do something with Time Warp and Elspeth? Could you be in the market for that possibly?
I would be very interested in that.
I could be interested.
Very, very interested in that. It looks like we have recovered our game state. Looks like we're going to do what we're going to do here, which is there's the Courser. Going to reveal the Courser, so everything has been unwound as it's supposed to. There's a Temple of Mystery. Trigger the Courser's life gain. Time to scry here for Kassari. Courser going to go to the bottom. Let's find out what's on top. It's a breeding pool. Now, of course, Kassari does have that Elspeth in play, which he's trying to ride to victory right now. Carter does have 2 copies of Mutavault, Blood Baron in hand. There's 3 soldiers there from Elspeth. And Kassari just has to pass the turn back with not a lot of action, honestly. He's got the Elspeth and the tokens, but that's really about it.
But Elspeth is, if you're going to have exactly one thing, Elspeth is not the worst thing to have.
That is very true. See, Carter draws a Sin Collector for the turn. So he's going to lead off with this. Take a look, Skipoo. There goes the Supreme Verdict that he knew about. So now Kassari's just playing off the top of his deck. And there's a Plains for Carter. Firing up Mutavaults in the situation does next to nothing. One would get eaten alive by the Courser. The other one would probably just get blocked by the Sylvan Caryatid or double or triple blocked by the Soldier tokens. So
all sorts of trouble.
Yeah. So Carter's just going to pass the turn back over to Kassari, who's going to draw the breeding pool that we know about. Top card is a Detention Sphere. Breeding pool going to come into play. Courser going to gain a life. Kassari going to go up to 21. And we know he's going to draw a D-Sphere next turn, but Elspeth is going to tick up because that's the thing that's most important out here and threaten its ultimate next turn.
Yeah, I think that Justin tried to, sandbag the Blood Baron because he didn't want to just play it into the face of Elspeth minus, but now we're in a spot where Kassari could just go ultimate next turn.
Mm-hmm. And then the ultimate plus an attacking would actually get the job done. Now, I'm not quite sure what Carter drew that turn. We know about the Blood Baron.
This is a Slaughter Games.
And that one, unfortunately, for Carter is going to do next to nothing.
The game is not about what is John's hand, it is what John has in play.
Mm-hmm. That's probably the reason I've just never been a big Slaughter Games fan.
I think it can be good when you're supplementing it with a lot of other disruption.
Sure.
A 1 or 2 Slaughter Games as part of a big Duress and Thoughtseize package could be good. I like it in Justin's deck too because he kind of needs a card with a high ceiling to steal the game because he's facing such an enormous deficit in this matchup. But this is not the game where Slaughter Games is going to be at its peak.
Well, Slaughter Games is going to be cast, and we'll find out exactly what Carter is naming here. Oh, there we go, Sphinx's Revelation. Not much of a surprise, so those are going to go bye-bye. But unfortunately for Justin, I'm not sure that's going to matter.
Well, here's the thing. It's possible John will actually not ultimate Elspeth next turn because of the fear of Bioblight.
Okay.
So that could buy Justin a little bit of time. If Kassari just goes for it, then Justin dies, of course. But it's not 100% that John's going to do that.
Not a card I considered. Forgot Bioblight was something people could be doing, which does blow out in Elspeth Ultimate.
I mean, it's hard to imagine, you're seeing this deck with red-white dual lands and Mutavaults. Do you really want to stretch your mana for something like Bioblight? Maybe John doesn't believe it, but if John feels like he has an enormous advantage in this spot, he might just err on the side of caution.
Sure. The trap could be set.
Yes.
As it were. So Slaughter Games will resolve. It typically is taking care of Sphinx's Revelations in its history and standard, which it has done yet again here. So Courser is going to reveal an Aetherling. That's another problem entirely for Justin.
Yeah, right. Now this may compel John to go for it because even if Justin's last card in hand is Bioblight, you just go, okay, I'll play Aetherling with mana up and an Elspeth emblem in play.
Aetherling on top, then it reveals an Aetherling. It's going to move in with the Elspeth. There's the emblem. Attack with everybody, including the Courser. Courser will have +2/+2 and flying as well. So this is going to be an attack here for 6 and 3 is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Sin Collector, you do not get to block. Neither does Mutavault. As those creatures all are flying, you see the emblem there. They'll point that out to Justin. And that is going to do it. So John Kassari is going to win this match over Justin Carter. 2-0. Band Control is going to move on to 4-1.
Yeah, I think Justin's deck could have actually been a potentially sweet choice for this weekend, given how the metagame is moving into a more aggressive place and little creature decks are starting to come back. We're seeing, some Red Devotion decks on camera as